We walked into the restaurant holding hands, my son Caleb and me. It was my dad's 60th birthday, and my sister had planned the whole thing. She had sent me the details 3 days before, just a quick text with the time and place. When we walked through the doors, I saw the long birthday table set up in the back corner. It looked beautiful, honestly. White tablecloth, flowers in the center, balloons tied to the chairs. I counted the seats as we got closer. 10 chairs. I counted again to make sure. Still 10. There were 11 of us supposed to be there. My dad, my stepmom, my sister and her husband, their 2 kids, my aunt and uncle, and me and Caleb. 11 people. 10 chairs. I felt my stomach drop because I just knew, which 2 people were missing seats. I walked up to my sister with a smile, still holding Caleb's hand. He was clutching a handmade birthday card he had worked on all week for Grandpa. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Is there a seat for Caleb?" My sister looked up from her phone, took a slow sip of her wine, and said the words I will never forget. "It's a grown-up dinner, Ellie." She did not even look at my son when she said it. She just looked at me, her eyes cold and dismissive, like I had asked something ridiculous. Like my 7-year-old son, my dad's only grandchild, was an inconvenience she had not bothered to plan for. I stood there for a second, waiting for her to laugh, waiting for her to say she was kidding. But she did not. She just turned back to her phone. And that was that. This was not just some random dinner. It was my dad's birthday. His 60th. A milestone. And Caleb was his only grandchild. My sister's kids were from her husband's previous marriage, so technically they were step-grandkids. Not that it mattered to my dad. He loved them. But Caleb was his blood, his legacy, the kid who called him every Sunday and asked about his woodworking projects. Caleb had made a card with crayons and stickers. He had written, "Happy Birthday, Grandpa," in his wobbly second-grade handwriting. He had drawn a picture of them fishing together, something they had done once last summer. And now he stood there, holding that card, with nowhere to sit. I saw his face starting to fall, his little hand squeezing mine tighter. My heart broke right there in the middle of that fancy restaurant. I took a breath. I was not going to make a scene. I was not going to yell or cry or beg. I had learned a long time ago that staying calm was more powerful than losing control. So I smiled at my sister, thanked her in the most polite voice I could manage, and took my son's hand. "Come on, baby," I said softly. "Let's go." Caleb looked up at me confused. "We're not staying?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not tonight." I could see my dad starting to stand up, his face worried, but my sister waved him off like everything was fine. I turned toward the front of the restaurant, ready to leave with whatever dignity I had left. And that is when I heard someone call my name. A voice I did not recognize. "Excuse me, are you Ellie Morgan?" I stopped walking and turned around. A man in a dark suit was walking toward me, smiling like he knew me. He was probably in his 40s, well-dressed, confident. I had no idea who he was. "Yes," I said cautiously. "I'm Ellie." His smile got bigger. "I thought that was you. I'm Daniel Reeves, the general manager here. I saw you speak at the Women in Tech Summit last month. You were incredible." I blinked, completely caught off guard. I had given a talk at that event, a small panel discussion about logistics and supply chain innovation. It was not a big deal, just 20 minutes of me talking about systems and efficiency. I did not think anyone really remembered it. But apparently, this man did. He was still smiling at me like I was someone important. And honestly, I did not know what to say. He kept talking, his voice warm and genuine. Our restaurant group was one of the sponsors for that event. I attended the whole day, and your session was the highlight. The way you broke down complex logistics into something everyone could understand, it was brilliant. We actually implemented some of your ideas in our own supply chain. I felt my face get hot. I was not used to this kind of recognition, especially not in front of my family. Especially not when I was in the middle of being dismissed by my own sister. Thank you, I managed to say. That's really kind of you. He glanced down at Caleb, who was still holding my hand and looking up at him with wide, curious eyes. Are you here for dinner? Daniel asked. I hesitated, not sure how to explain what had just happened without making it awkward. But I did not need to. I pointed toward the back of the restaurant, toward the long birthday table where my family was sitting. I was supposed to be, I said carefully. But it looks like there wasn't enough space planned. I did not say more than that. I did not throw my sister under the bus. I did not complain or make accusations. I just stated the fact. Daniel's smile faded. He looked over at the table, then back at me, his expression shifting from friendly to concerned. He frowned slightly, clearly picking up on what I was not saying. I see, he said quietly. Then his voice changed, becoming more professional, more decisive. Well, we'll fix that right now. He turned and gestured to two servers who were standing nearby. They came over immediately, and he spoke to them in a low, firm voice. Add 2 chairs to that table. Full place settings. And bring a kid's menu for this young man. The servers nodded and hurried off. Within 2 minutes, the servers were back. They moved things around, added 2 chairs, and set up a full place setting for me and a special one for Caleb with a kid's menu and crayons. The whole table had gone quiet. Everyone was watching. My sister's face had turned red. My stepmom looked confused. My dad was smiling, clearly trying not to laugh. The atmosphere had shifted completely. It was not loud or dramatic. The room did not clap or cheer, but it felt like they did. It felt like the air had changed, like something unspoken had just been said. The manager stood next to our new seats, waiting for us to sit down. Please, he said, pulling out my chair for me. Join your family. And if you need anything at all, just let me know. I looked at Caleb. He was grinning now, his earlier sadness completely forgotten. And we sat down. My sister tried to recover. She laughed, but it sounded forced and fake. Oh, Ellie. I'm so sorry. I thought you couldn't come. You didn't RSVP, and I just assumed. I cut her off gently, my voice calm and steady. I did RSVP, I said. 3 days ago. I texted you back and said we'd both be here. Her smile broke. Just for a second, but I saw it. The crack in the perfect image she always tried to maintain. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. So I just looked at her, letting the silence sit there, heavy and uncomfortable. We were invited, weren't we? I asked softly. She nodded quickly, too quickly. Of course. Of course you were. But everyone at the table knew. They all knew exactly what had happened. And no amount of backtracking was going to erase it. A moment later, the manager came back with a glass in his hand. He set it down in front of me with a warm smile. Sparkling water with lime, he said. On the house, Ms. Morgan. It's an honor to have you here. I thanked him, genuinely touched by the gesture. It was such a small thing, a free glass of water, but it meant more than he probably knew. It meant I was seen. It meant I mattered. He did not offer anything to my sister. He did not acknowledge her at all. He just smiled at me, gave a polite nod to the table, and walked away. My sister stared at her own glass of wine, her jaw tight. She was not used to being ignored. She was not used to someone else getting the attention. And, honestly, I was not either. But I was not going to apologize for it. Not this time. My dad leaned over toward me, his voice quiet and confused. Ellie, what's going on? How do you know the manager? I smiled at him and whispered back, I gave a talk at a business event last month. He was there. That's all. My dad's eyebrows went up. He looked impressed, maybe even a little proud. You gave a talk? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. Just about work stuff. Logistics and supply chains. Nothing fancy. But his expression said he thought it was fancy. He thought it was a big deal. And maybe it was. I had been so focused on just surviving, on raising Caleb alone and keeping my career going, that I had not stopped to appreciate what I had actually accomplished. My dad smiled at me, a real, genuine smile. We're finally being seen, I said softly. He nodded, his eyes a little glassy. Yeah, he said. We are. A few minutes later, Caleb slid out of his chair and walked over to my dad with the handmade card in his hands. The whole table got quiet. Everyone watched as he handed it to Grandpa, his little voice saying, Happy birthday, Grandpa. I made this for you. My dad took the card carefully, like it was the most precious thing he had ever held. He opened it and read the message inside, his face softening. Then he looked at the drawing, the one of them fishing together, and I saw his eyes fill with tears. He pulled Caleb into a hug, holding him tight. Thank you, buddy, he said, his voice thick with emotion. This is the best gift I got all day. Caleb beamed. And I felt a lump form in my throat. Even my sister could not fake a grin this time. She just sat there, silent, staring at her plate. One of my sister's friends, a woman I had met a few times at family events, leaned in and whispered something to her. I could not hear exactly what she said, but I caught enough. Wait, how does Ellie know the manager? My sister did not answer. She just shrugged and took another sip of her wine, her face tight and uncomfortable. The friend looked over at me, clearly curious, but I pretended not to notice. I was not going to explain myself. I was not going to perform or justify or make myself smaller so my sister could feel bigger. I had spent too many years doing that already. So I just focused on my son, on my dad, on the people at the table who actually cared. Let her sit with her discomfort. Let her wonder. I was done making things easier for people who made things harder for me. The truth was, I had not told most of my family about the work I had been doing. About the speaking engagements, the consulting clients, the side projects that had turned into real opportunities. I kept my wins quiet because I did not want to deal with the questions, the judgment, the jealousy. My sister had always been the successful one in the family. The one with the big house, the fancy job, the perfect life. And I was just Ellie, the single mom who worked in logistics. But that did not mean I was not successful. It just meant I was successful in a different way. A quieter way. I helped companies run smoother. I built systems that saved time and money. I gave talks that made people think differently about their work. And people noticed. They remembered. Even if my family did not. Caleb sat at the table with so much dignity. He did not fidget or complain or act out. He used his napkin. He said please and thank you. He asked thoughtful questions about the menu and waited patiently for his food. When the server brought him chicken tenders and fries, he thanked her by name after reading her name tag. I was so proud of him. He had more manners, more grace, more kindness than half the adults at that table. My sister's kids were loud and demanding, interrupting conversations and throwing food. No one corrected them. But Caleb sat there, polite and respectful, and I could see people noticing. My aunt smiled at him. My uncle gave him a thumbs up. Even my stepmom, who usually kept to herself, leaned over and told me I was raising a good kid. And she was right. I was. My job was not flashy. I worked in logistics, managing supply chains and operations for mid-sized companies. I dealt with data, systems, and processes. Most people did not understand what I did, and honestly, I did not expect them to. It was not glamorous. It was not something you could brag about at parties, but it mattered. I helped companies move products faster, cut costs, reduce waste, and improve efficiency. I solved problems that most people did not even know existed. And over time, people in the industry started to recognize my work. They invited me to speak at conferences. They asked me to consult on projects. They recommended me to others. Quietly, steadily, I had built a reputation. Not because I was loud or showy, but because I was good at what I did. And people noticed that, even if my family did not. My sister had always looked down on me. Ever since we were kids, she made it clear that she was smarter, prettier, more successful. When we were younger, she used to call me Little Miss Spreadsheet because I liked organizing things and solving problems. She said it like it was an insult. Like being good with numbers and systems was something to be ashamed of. I used to smile and pretend it did not bother me. I did the same thing now. I smiled when she made her little comments, when she acted like I was less than, when she treated me like I did not matter. But this time, something was different. This time, I was not just smiling and taking it. I was smiling because I knew something she did not. I knew my worth. And I did not need her to see it for it to be real. While we were eating, one of the servers came over to refill my water. He paused for a second, looking at me like he was trying to place my face. Then he smiled. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "Are you the one who built the delivery optimization app for Freight Hub?" I blinked, surprised. "That's me," I said. His jaw dropped. "No way. That app saved us so much time during the holiday rush last year. Our manager showed us a case study about it in a staff meeting. You're kind of a legend around here." I felt my face flush. "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched. "That means a lot." He grinned, refilled my glass, and walked away. My sister heard the whole thing. I saw her jaw tighten. I saw her friends exchange glances. And I saw the image she had built, the image of me as the struggling single mom who barely had it together, start to crack. Her friends started asking more questions. Quiet questions, whispered across the table when my sister was not paying attention. "Why wasn't Ellie sitting up front?" one of them asked. "Why did they act like she wasn't invited?" another added. I did not answer. I did not need to. The truth was already out there, hanging in the air like smoke. My sister tried to redirect the conversation, talking loudly about her own work, her recent promotion, her upcoming vacation. But no one was really listening anymore. They were watching me, watching how the staff treated me, watching how the manager kept checking in, watching how I carried myself with quiet confidence, not needing to prove anything to anyone. The perfect image my sister had built, the image of herself as the successful one and me as the failure, was falling apart right in front of her. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. A little while later, the manager came back to our table carrying a small plate. On it was a slice of rich chocolate cake with a lit sparkler sticking out of the top. He walked straight to Caleb and set it down in front of him with a warm smile. "This one's for the gentleman at the table," he said. Caleb's eyes went wide. He looked up at me, asking permission without words. I nodded, and he grinned so big I thought his face might split in half. "Thank you," he said, his voice full of pure joy. The sparkler crackled and glowed, lighting up his face. People at nearby tables turned to look, smiling at the sight. My dad was beaming. My aunt had tears in her eyes. And my sister? Her face was cold, frozen, like she had just watched someone else steal her spotlight. Because that is exactly what had happened. Except no one stole anything. Caleb earned that moment just by being himself. Then something even more unexpected happened. The chef came out of the kitchen. The actual head chef, in his white coat and everything. He walked straight to our table, and for a second, I thought maybe there was a problem with the food. but he was smiling. He looked right at me and said, "Ms. Morgan, I just wanted to come out and thank you personally." I stared at him confused. "Thank me? For what?" He laughed. "Your logistics consultation last year. You helped us streamline our supply ordering and reduce food waste by almost 30%. Your ideas saved us during the holiday rush. I've been wanting to meet you in person ever since." I did not even remember working with this restaurant specifically, but apparently, my work had reached them through the restaurant group I consulted for. My sister stood up abruptly. "Excuse me," she muttered and walked toward the bathroom. She could not even stay at the table anymore. A few minutes after she left, my uncle raised his glass. He was not a big talker, usually kept to himself at family events. But he stood up, glass in hand, and said in a clear, strong voice, "I'd like to make a toast." Everyone turned to look at him. "To Ellie," he said, looking right at me. "The quiet genius in the family. The one who's been doing incredible things and never felt the need to brag about it. We should have been paying more attention. We should have been celebrating you all along." People clinked their glasses. My dad nodded, tears in his eyes again. My aunt squeezed my hand under the table. It was not a big, dramatic moment, but it was real. It was genuine. And it meant everything. When my sister came back from the bathroom, the toast was over. She had no words. She had no response. She just sat down and stayed quiet for the rest of the meal. After dinner, when we were all heading to our cars, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister. I almost did not open it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was short and bitter. "You planned that, didn't you?" I stared at the words for a long moment, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Planned what? Planned to be good at my job? Planned to be recognized for my work? Planned to raise my son with kindness and respect? I had not planned anything. I had just lived my life, worked hard, and stayed true to myself. But she could not see that. She could only see it as some kind of plot, some scheme to embarrass her. I thought about responding. I thought about explaining. But then I realized something. I did not owe her an explanation. I did not owe her anything. So I did not reply. I just put my phone away and walked to my car with my son's hand in mine. That night, after I put Caleb to bed, my phone rang. It was my dad. I answered, and his voice was soft, almost emotional. "Ellie," he said, "I need to say something. I'm sorry. I should have seen how much you've grown, how much you've accomplished. I should have stood up for you tonight. I should have made sure you had a seat at that table from the beginning." I felt tears prick my eyes. "It's okay, Dad," I said. But he kept going. "No, it's not okay. You're raising a wonderful kid on your own. You're doing incredible work. You're making a real difference in the world. And I'm proud of you. So proud. I should have told you that a long time ago." His voice cracked a little. "Thank you," I whispered. "That means more to me than you know." We talked for a little while longer, and when I hung up, I felt lighter. That phone call was worth more than any free dessert or standing ovation. It was the validation I had been waiting for my whole life. My sister wanted me silent. She wanted me invisible. She wanted me to stay small so she could stay big. She tried to erase me with a missing chair, tried to make me feel like I did not belong, like I was not worth making space for. But the restaurant gave me a standing welcome. The manager recognized my face and my work. The chef came out to thank me. The server called me a legend. The room leaned in when I spoke, not because I demanded attention, but because I had earned respect. And my family finally saw me. Really saw me. Not as the struggling single mom. Not as Little Miss Spreadsheet. But as Ellie Morgan, a woman who built something meaningful through hard work, intelligence, and quiet determination. Revenge does not always mean shouting. Sometimes it means being exactly who you are and letting the world notice what you were doing all along. I am Ellie Morgan, and I do not need a seat at your table to know my worth.